Hello, 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 hello. Welcome back to my channel. Today I will be reading you guys an excerpt from a book that I found. When you're ready, this is how you heal. And I think this book is very fitting for the new year because it teaches you how to heal from the past and learn from your past trauma. Let's get started. Introduction. Healing is not a one-time event. It can begin with a one-time event, typically some form of sudden loss that disrupts our projection of what the future might be. However, the true work of healing is allowing that disruption to wake us from a deep state of unconsciousness, to release the personas we adapted into, and begin consciously piecing together the full truth of who we were meant to be. The experiences that catalyze healing are not trying to prompt us to simply recover from a blow to the ego, but for the first time, in many cases, to recognize our ego at all. It is a moment of reconciliation where we were asked to realize that, in the words of Michael Murphy, a greater life is pressing to be born. If we do not answer this call, it will continue to show up in our lives, often in similar patterns and feelings. We will continuously return to wondering, how am I still here? Or how did I get here again? The answer is that the same wake-up call keeps coming in until our subconscious minds agree to embark on the journey of our own becoming. This is a process of fully restoring us into remembrance of the perfect, whole and complete truth of who we are. It is the lifelong quest, because we must tend to the gardens of our minds on a daily basis. Like children, they cannot completely manage themselves. Our lives require a higher functioning, future considering adult aspect of ourselves to come truth and sit in the driver's seat. This is a journey because no healing, whether physical or spiritual, is something that occurs linearly, nor seamlessly. Life contracts before it expands, and pulls back before it leaps forward. This balancing act is not something we should resist, but rather embrace. The longer we avoid doing so, the longer we will dwell on the event of series of events that arose in our past for the sake of waking us up, rather than truly beginning the more difficult but far more rewarding work. In many ways, the journey of healing is not so much a chapter in your story, but changing the way you write the entire book. It's a shift in the way you move through the world, one in which you move from being disappointed that life has not met your every expectation to expanding your vision to perceive all of the magic, the wonder, the awe, the heartache, the loss, the gain, the contrast that makes us all perfect and unpredictably human. Our healed selves are not our most flawless selves. They are not immune to sadness or grief or fear. They are just not controlled by those experiences any longer. They feel sadness when it's time for sadness, and grief when it's time to grieve, and contentment on a more regular basis. They fear things that are unknown or unimportant, or both, but they do not allow that emotion to prevent them from moving forward. Life can be deeply challenging and profoundly unfair, and without the ability to move through the feelings that may accompany our experiences in real time, we often become trapped in the old stories we once wove around. When we are able to validate, accept, and process our own human experience independent of anyone else, something magical occurs. We begin reconnecting with our true desires, heeding our subtlest instincts, and cease sabotaging our inspired thoughts and feelings. Through this, we tend to usher in an unfolding of events. Over time, we begin to recognize that there is a common thread carrying us through each one of those experiences, which is our soul's silent guidance, ever present and always leading us just beyond what we can see in the real time. As we start to recognize this power, we begin to trust it more. As we start to trust it more, we begin to follow it more closely. We have greater stretches of feeling ease and in love. Our lives begin to come back into harmony through our new grounded center perspective. We realize that we were never really lost. We were just giving ourselves some space to process before we could move forward completely. Your first purpose is to heal. The sheer impact of you becoming the person you know you were meant to be will have a ripple effect on everyone and everything around you. Nothing will ever be the same. If you cannot imagine how else you might leave a legacy, help others, or do something meaningful with your life, the most important place to start is within yourself. It's also the hardest place to start. It's far simpler to gaze outward and point our fingers at what we believe everyone else is doing wrong. It is more challenging to look ourselves in the mirror and be honest about the ways that we have not been living up to our true potential, to identify the areas in life where we have some room to grow, and then continuously push ourselves to show up every day to make those changes manifest. When we claim ownership over the unique destiny that is meant to be ours, the collective heals with us, because we are all pieces of the whole. Perfection will be impossible, as it is within the contrast that this world becomes what it is meant to be, a training ground for soul development. This is not about trying to take the world and make it what we think its most perfect iteration might be, but to finally do what we had intended all along, to awaken, to remember, to witness our own seeds of potential take root. In the same way that no two people are alike, every purpose we are called to is unique as well, and this is precisely what this book intends to do. Awaken each of us to the small and large ways in which we truly can affect those around us. In the corner of the earth we were given, in the specific ways we know how, for the period of time that is ours. You are far from alone in hearing the call to wake up from the life you had planned in order to commit wholeheartedly to the life you have been waiting. If enough of us are able to do so, I believe we will have the potential to see massive shifts in our shared physical reality. There is not one person who does not need healing, because there is not one person who does not need to be awakened from their unconsciousness and into all that they might offer. This book is a collection of pieces I wrote over the course of many years of my own journey, beginning as a young girl who suffered from significant mental and emotional health disorders, to the woman sitting in the coast of California on a chilly summer evening, healthy, established, connected, and thriving, and writing these words to you now. If you picked up this book, you're already on the same path to healing and discovering your true purpose. I hope my words may help ease your heart through the journey your brave soul has already begun. See you on the other side. Chapter 1. When you're ready, this is how you heal. You recognize that familiar dull feeling in your gut, as though something is wrong, though you can't quite pinpoint what? You start to take inventory of your life. You recount your job, your salary, your friends, what so-and-so from such and such time in your life will think of you now. Your nice new profile photo on Facebook. The pieces, when put together, form a picture that should nullify that feeling. And yet, you go through life stymied by that ache. It crescendos and crashes. You get distracted by the news, or your job, or Twitter, or something that temporarily scares you a little bit more. It goes on until one day you realize you're being levied. Haunted by a pain you can't quite decipher. Slowly it wears you down. It's harder to get up. It's harder to go out. It's easier to drink and then drink some more. Or maybe eat or shop or post photos of yourself on Instagram. Everyone has a vice. The more you are confused by the small, scary feeling you can't figure out, the worse it gets. And the worse it gets, the more you become convinced that it's a warning of what it is to come. You start to attach thoughts to that feeling. Fear stories. The stories you realize are illogical. You're overreacting. You're convinced your world is immediately coming to an end, And these gut feelings, the ones you've been implicitly told to trust for so long, are simply warning you to take cover. What you can't see right now is that nothing is really wrong. Actually, things are really right, which is why you finally feel safe enough to feel what you really feel. Stop projecting. Stop telling stories. Those dull, unsettling feelings are not in the future. They're in the past. You've been carrying them with you all this time. If we don't finish processing our emotional experiences, they stay with us like the food we can't metabolize, or old clothes we never get around to packing up and putting out at the curb. Sometimes, they hold within them nourishment, wisdom, and guidance. Other times, they're debris from a chapter long closed. Either way, there are signals to the spaces in which we are not yet free. When you're ready to heal, you will need to lay yourself down in a very safe space and focus those tense feelings. Have them show you their origins. You will begin to see moments you forgot about, feelings you forgot you ever felt. The past will come up in blinks and vishnets. Slowly, over time, you will awaken to what is really wrong, which is the piece of you that had to break off and build a wall around your heart because behind it was a wound you did not yet know how to heal. When you are ready, you will step behind it. You will know that the anger, the sadness, and the anxiety are a veil, a trigger trying to wake you up, not knock you out. You will need to cry. You will need to cry for the 13-year-old that got her heart broken, for the 16-year-old whose friends were mean to him. You will need to mourn what you lost and when you lost it. You will need to go back in time and insert yourself into those memories as an adult and tell your child self to say what they really needed to say at the moment they needed to say it, though they couldn't find the words or the courage. You will need to do this over and over again until you slowly realize you are becoming lighter. You are releasing, though you cannot change time. You are somehow changing your story. You will need to sweat. You will need to stretch and move your body and pay close attention to where you are tight and what makes you feel uncomfortable, and where you are pent up and storing all that pain. You will need to shake. You will need to lay on the floor and literally shake out everything you're holding. You will need to let yourself feel vulnerable and small, both of which are, at the end of the day, the two feelings we guard ourselves against the most. You will need to surrender. Through the tears and sweat and shaking and shifting, you will stop fighting it. You will see your past life for what it was, so you can see your present for what it is, filled with hope and potential. Eventually, you will get up, and your world will start to change. You will exit relationships and begin others. You will call someone you haven't talked to in a long time. You will suddenly be inspired to attend a new class or find yourself drafting your resignation email. You will begin writing, reading, sitting outside, and drinking water, feeling grateful for those simple things. You will sleep a little bit easier. Gradually, you will start to return to yourself. You will enter that emotional fire and burn off everything blocking the core of you from truly being in the world. Then you will know that when you lose someone, you must cry. When you're frustrated, you must be frustrated. When you want to say something, you must speak. In the healing process, you don't just learn how to go back and fix what you didn't finish. You also learn how to press forward, how to live more intently and presently, how to process your experiences in real time. The more you do this, the more you will awaken and begin to show up for life. You start speaking again. You start feeling again. You start being again. When you feel strong enough to look at what's wrong, you begin to unearth your soul. It was always there. It was just buried under years and layers of identities and styles and beliefs and ideas that had adhered themselves to you like a shield. You were never lost. You were only hidden. All the time you spent feeling so uncomfortable was just your deepest self trying to speak to you, trying to remind you its presence. It was only the core of you saying, keep going. There is more to life than this. When you are ready to change your life, read this, Chapter 2. What if in the moments you feel most alone, you begin to realize that you are also free? What if you could see that in these very moments you fear most, you are also completely unburdened from the expectations of others, able to define and redefine yourself, to explore life on your own terms, to hear the sound of your own voice? What if being on your own in any capacity is a sign of self-sufficiency and courage? What if you already made it? What if instead of believing your aloneness is a sign you have failed, you realize that it's the proof you have accomplished the most daring task of all? What if instead of believing that your job is not enough, in compensation, in status, in whatever you've shocked your inferiority of to be, you begin to realize that no set of tasks could ever define the whole of who you are? What if you begin to understand that a job is a means to an end, and you doing anything to contribute to you or your family's well-being and security is important and yet only one facet of success? What if instead of believing that you must be the best to be good enough, you realize that to have somewhere to wake up and go, something to wake up and do, is a purpose and a gift that should never be taken for granted? What if instead of believing that you have failed, you begin to recognize that failure is just life's way of moving you into another direction? What if instead of counting up all the times things haven't worked out precisely the way you imagined they would or should, you considered that perhaps you were being led somewhere else? What if you found awe and reverence in the fact that there is a force so powerful protecting you, perhaps one you cannot even name or see or even believe in, that is refusing to let you have even the things you beg hardest for, because there is something else you are so destined for? What if instead of thinking that your life was meant to unfold seamlessly, you realize that the courage it takes to keep opening doors, even if they all close, is all part of the process? What if instead of losing hope in the world and life itself, you allowed your failures to strengthen your faith, making you see that there is a path for you to walk, and a force field holding you to it, no matter how hard you may try to get off? What if instead of begrudging someone for not being precisely the person you imagined they would be, you realize that the offering of someone's time is the ultimate sacrifice and the epitome of love? What if you realize that they are under no obligation to be who you think they should be, and the most loving thing you could do would be to set them free of the expectations you hold in your own mind? What if you realize that they don't have to be just as you imagine in order for you to exchange the love you are meant to share? What if the gift you're receiving right now is the chance to witness the rawness of someone's heart, their edges and imperfections? What if the journey is really asking you to love a flawed person so you might be able to love your own flaws the same way? What if the life of your dreams is not one where you do all things perfectly for an audience within your own imagination, but one where you have a few things you care about deeply and passionately and spend your life tending to them, releasing into the nothing less all the other cares that did nothing but hold you back from your own love and life? What if your body appears precisely the way it is meant to, but you're so busy focusing on the flaws that nobody else notices? You're overlooking the beauty everyone else sees. What if you believe that there's something wrong with the way you look because you spend an excessive amount of time focusing about how light and free perfection would feel? What if all you needed to do was simply look around you, to the people you know, to the people you don't, the people who coexist in the world beside you? What if you truly began to realize that almost nobody exists within that fantasy, and yet so many are still deeply and completely loved, fully alive and happy, walking in their truth and thriving as all they were meant to be? I'm not saying that there aren't real problems in your life, only that it's very hard to actually identify those problems when you're so busy trying to correct non-issues, so preoccupied with questions that have no answers. You could spend your entire lifetime wondering if you are worthy and enough and beautiful and successful, and you will never come up with anything concrete. So you have a choice. You have a choice of how you will build your own perception around what exists. What if cleansing your mind with hopeful, joyful, positive thoughts is the rebalancing that's been long overdue, after so many years of existing solely within the most negative interpretations you could come up with? What if after an entire lifetime of being sold that the idea, the point of life is to exist as perfectly as possible, you can now open up the notion that perhaps you are instead here to enjoy the ride while you're still on it? This year, let go of the people who aren't ready to love you. Chapter 3. It is the hardest thing you will ever have to do. It will also be the most important. Stop giving your love to those who aren't ready to love you. Stop having hard conversation with people who don't want to change. Stop showing up for people who are indifferent about your presence. Stop prioritizing people who make you an option. Stop loving people who aren't ready to love you. I know that your instinct is to do whatever you can to earn the good graces of everyone you can, but that is also the impulse that would rob you of your own time, your energy, and your sanity. When you start showing up your life wholly and completely with joy and interest and commitment, not everyone is going to be ready to meet you there. It doesn't mean you need to change who you are. It means you need to stop loving people who aren't ready to love you. If you're left out, subtly insulted, mindlessly forgotten about, or easily disregarded by the people you spend the most time with, you're doing yourself an incredible disservice by continuing to offer your energy and life to them. You are not for everyone, and everyone is not for you. That's what makes it so special when you do find a few people with whom you have a genuine relationship, friendship, or love. You'll know how precious it is because you've experienced what it isn't. But the longer you spend trying to force someone to love you when they aren't capable, the longer you're robbing yourself of that very connection. It is waiting for you. There are billions of people on this planet, and so many of them are going to meet you at your level, vibe where you are, connect to where you're going. But the longer you stay small, tucked into the familiarity of the people you use as a cushion, a back burner option, a therapist and a ploy for their emotional labor, the longer you keep yourself out of the community you crave. Maybe if you stop showing up, you'll be less liked. Maybe you'll be forgotten about altogether. Maybe if you stop trying, the relationship will cease. Maybe if you stop texting, your phone will stay dark for days and weeks. Maybe if you stop loving someone, the love between you will dissolve. That doesn't mean you ruin a relationship. It means the only thing sustaining a relationship was the energy you and you alone were putting into it. That's not love, that's attachment. The most precious, important thing that you have in your life is your energy. It is not your time that is limited, it is your energy. What you give to each day is what you will create more and more in your life. What you give your time to is what will define your existence. When you realize this, you'll begin to understand why you're so anxious when you spend your time with people who are wrong for you, and in jobs or places or cities that are wrong too. You'll begin to realize that the four most important things you can do for your life and yourself and everyone you know is to protect your energy more fiercely than anything else. Make your life a safe haven in which only people that have the capacity to care and listen and connect are allowed. You are not responsible for saving people. You are not responsible for convincing that they want to be saved. It is not your job to show up for the people and give away your life to them, little by little, moment by moment, because you pity them, because you feel bad, because you should, because you're obligated, because at the root of it all, you're afraid to not be liked back. It is your job to realize that you are the master of your fate and that you are accepting the love you think you're worthy of. Decide you are deserving of real friendship, true commitment, and complete love with people who are healthy and thriving. Then wait in the darkness just for a little bit and watch how quickly everything begins to change. 47 ways to practice micro-healing in your everyday life. Chapter 4. Do something that your future self will thank you for, even if it's small. Appreciate something you have today that your past self will be impressed by, even if it feels normal now. Start saying thank you for what you want, as though you already have it. Write it down, say it out loud, even once is enough. Learn the power of momentum. Start with small tasks in the day and let it build. Make one tiny shift in the right direction. Drink 1/2 glass of water. Walk around the block. Take one deep breath. Just for today, let yourself feel how you feel. Find a healthy, productive distraction for when your mind needs to be rerouted. Unfollow every single person who makes you feel bad about yourself. See your discomfort as your subconscious way of telling yourself that you are capable of more and better than you have at this current moment. Junk journal. Open up a notebook and scribble down exactly how you feel. Stop trying to invalidate them with positivity. That will arise on its own once your subconscious is more clear. Let yourself dream. Imagine what you want to build and create next in your life. Give yourself something to look forward to. Plan a trip, make a date, or take yourself somewhere. If there is something you need to change in your life, start today. Look for a new job. Write a letter to someone you need to apologize to. If time is not resolving the matter, then time may be waiting for you. Do not believe everything that you think, and do not trust everything that you feel. Think back on everything you worried about that turned out to be nothing, and how sometimes our fears lead us to believe our worst thoughts are most real. Think back on all those times you had strong, overwhelming feelings that you didn't really understand, and realize that sometimes you just have to learn how to let them pass. Do something each day that helps you get to know yourself better. Write down what you like and what you don't. Identify your values, your beliefs, your hopes, your fears. Spend time with people who understand you. Do something for someone without asking for anything in return. Don't be afraid to disengage. Spend less time on your phone. Decline events that make you feel drained at the end. Remember the sacredness of your energy and attention. Read something that makes you think about the world differently. Note what comes effortlessly to you. Within this is the key to your future. Note what is interesting to you. Within this is the key to your purpose. Note what you struggle with the most. Within this is the key to what you're here to heal. Practice standing up for yourself in a healthy way. Look in the mirror and practice setting boundaries. Learn how to speak your truth with dignity and grace. Recognize that whatever bothers you most about other people can reveal the unconscious truth about yourself. Use these discomforts as opportunities to heal your own invisible wounds, leaning deeply to that which brings you joy. Do something special for the people you really care about, even if it's just a reminder text of how much you love them. Create a vision board. Study the daily habits of people you admire. Study the daily habits of the people you do not admire. When you feel the impulse to judge another person, remind yourself gently that every time you do so, you only continue to narrow your own self-approval. State what you are feeling in clear and honest terms. This will help you process and accept it, even if it doesn't make complete sense to you right now. Interrogate one negative thought. Instead of running on autopilot, stop and ask yourself, is this true? Do I know for a fact that this is true? Who told me that this is true? Then ask yourself, does this thought help me move my life in the direction I would like it to go? Give yourself permission to rest. If all you were able to do today was wake up and keep breathing, that's okay. Make a to-do list, then cut it in half. Then cut it in half again. You should be left with one or two most imperative tasks. Focus on those and only those, and then go from there. Meditate on how you've come so far. Make a list of all the things you have, do, and feel that you never imagined would be possible. Meditate on how much you've overcome. Consider everything that happened in the past that you swore you never get over, and know that you always did. Express genuine gratitude. Find something you are actually happy to have. If feeling good is too far from where you're at, then just try to feel neutral. Sleep when you are tired. Eat when you are hungry. Pause before you react. You are allowed to be angry, but you will want to be mindful of allowing that feeling to make you take action that could impact your safety or quality of life for years to come. Write yourself a note in which you outline exactly what to do when you have a panicky feeling. When you're thinking clearly, tell yourself what to do when you're not. Remember that you're mortal. All of this will pass. No time is guaranteed. You are not stuck forever. Life moves quickly and it does not stop. You are only here for a moment. Try to savor it as much as you can. The truth of who you are is more than you let yourself believe. Infinite versions of you exist. There's the person you were yesterday and the person you are today. There's the person you were 5 years ago and the person you will be in another 10. There's the person you were this morning and then the person you'll be tonight. There's the person that exists within the minds of each person you know and meet and come across and love. Every single one of them has a unique image of you in their minds, informed by their own experiences and preferences and beliefs and feelings they have about their own selves. When we feel most stuck, it is often because we are trying to decipher who we really are by piecing together images we assume others have of us. What we don't realize is that there is not just one singular version of us that exists. There's our experiences of ourselves, and then the kaleidoscopes of ways we are perceived by others. When we spend all of our lives trying to manage those perceptions, we become completely lost within them. What if there's a bigger truth here, one that's begging to be seen? You have probably had more experiences than you can remember, and they were better than you can recall. You've seen more of the world than you realize. You've felt more happiness than you are generally conscious of. You've known more joy, felt more inspiration, and have succeeded more times than you are aware of when you're in your most doubtful moments. You've been more accepted than you remember, more appreciated and validated than you know. More people see potential than you realize. They liked you more than you believe. You were more wanted than you think, by friends, by family, by potential lovers who longed for you in ways you probably never would have imagined in the first place. When the people closest to you look at you, they see far more of your greatness than you ever would looking at yourself. You've made a bigger impact of the world than you realize. There are more hearts you have soothed in moments of grief, more minds you have inspired to see hope when there was once defeat. There has been more instances where one kind, selfless act cascaded a ripple effect across the entire world. Your love has touched people on the other side of the planet. You just don't know it right now. You have more going on for you than you understand right now. It's easy to define ourselves by the empty spaces, the ways in which we lack. And yet these are not always gaps within us waiting to be filled. Rather, the simple contrast between all we are and all we were never meant to be. When we can learn to hold space for all coexisting truths of our lives, we can begin to understand the experience itself is both contraction and expansion. The high and low of it, the beautiful and heartbreaking altogether. We are not summarized or defined by any one instance or experience. The static singular image we think others have of us in their minds is usually a projection of our greatest hopes and deepest fears. We are fluid, evolving beings. We are different from one moment to the next. We spend so much time making assumptions about how we are in the world instead of actually feeling into our lived experiences. We allow ourselves to become labeled and defined by what we think we've done and how others have responded to it, rather than who we are going to become and whether or not we can be at peace with it. When we show up to each day as a different person, the world will start to shift to perceive us that way. We are in no way forever limited or permanently defined by who we were in the past. But you, more than anyone, are most inclined to see yourself that way. You, more than anyone, are most inclined to believe the worst things about you are the most true things about you. Nobody, not one single person alive, is thinking about you more than you are thinking about yourself. They are too busy thinking about their own lives and how they perceived and whether they are enough, and so on. As we begin to heal, we start to recognize that our lives do not have to be defined by how we think we are seen. The truth is that to some people you are the beauty standard. To others, you are simply overlooked. To some, you are a genius at your craft. And to others, you are so irrelevant. To some, you are an incredible friend. To others, you are a complete stranger. To some, you are a life partner. To others, you are not someone they'd even date. To some, you are a teacher. And to others, you are a student. To some, you're a guide. To others, you're a beginner. To some, you're a shining light. To others, you reveal their darkness. The reality is that you exist in so many different forms and images and beliefs and stories, and yet the only one that is ever really going to matter is the one you tell yourself. Allow this knowing to free you. Allow it to help you see that there is more dimension, more contrast, more nuance, and more goodness within you than you have ever allowed yourself to believe. You have done more, seen more, and meant more to others than you could ever know. Close this book for a moment. Take 1 second just to breathe and look around you. There is more here than you would ever realize. There is more waiting than you would ever assume. Let's let that sink for a minute. So that was 5 chapters of this beautiful book written by Brianna Wiest. When you're ready, this is how you heal. I found this book last year, but I felt like after reading all the reviews, it was time for me to read it. And so I bought it yesterday, got here today, and I've got to say, by just those 50 pages right there, I'm inclined to read the rest. If you're interested, you already know the title. This is it right here. And this video has been a short read. I hope you guys have enjoyed. And I know that you guys are probably doing some self-reflection right now. I wish you all the success. I wish you all health. I wish you all stability and everything else in between. Good night. Good night. Good night.